Welcome everybody to another episode of B&B Hockey Talk. Remember to hit that like button, leave a comment below whether you're following us on our YouTube page or on our Facebook page. And remember, on our Facebook page, B&B Hockey Talk, Matt posts all the highlights from all the hockey that's out there, whether it's Memorial Cup, the World Championships, and of course the NHL. So today's episode is brought to you by ID Seal for all your identity theft needs, whether it's social media or your credit card, your driver's license, whatever. It will alert you to all the dangers on not just the web, but also the dark web. Check our Facebook page for all the details if you're interested in that and you live in the U.S. I'm Aaron. He's Matt. We're going to talk about the Stanley Cup Finals. Matt, welcome to the show.
Yeah, it was a heck of a weekend. The St. Louis Blues going back to the Stanley Cup Final for the first time in 49 years. It's a heck of a time to be a fan in St. Louis, and especially it's just like I was interacting with one of our fans on our Facebook page, and it's just like I've been waiting my whole life sort of for this, and it looks like he's sort of around my age too. So it's just like. You just enjoy the moment. It's like it's stressful. It's and then you have those exciting things as well. It's just and as I said, it's just like I hope it ends better than it did for me in 2011 because or for us in general. So it's gonna be one heck of a Stanley Cup final.
Well, and it's a new team that hasn't been there in an awfully long time. The Blues, of course, first time since 1970 when they got swept by the Boston Bruins and Bobby Orr, his famous goal. Back when the NHL had 6 expansion teams, and of course all the expansion teams were on one side, so St. Louis made it to the finals 3 years in a row. But we talked a little bit about this before we came on air. They've only missed the playoffs 9 times in their history. That's pretty impressive. Now that they're back in the Stanley Cup Finals, it was kind of like they lost Game 3 against San Jose because of the glove hand pass. That wasn't called. It was like the hockey gods corrected everything. They only allowed 1 goal in the last 3 games against that high-flying San Jose's offense. And it was funny because I saw a tweet yesterday during the game. There was about 6 or 7 minutes left in the game, and it said, "Hey, NHL, I think it's time for a 5-minute power play." And, of course, that didn't happen, but that was something that I saw that made me laugh. But yeah, St. Louis is in. How did they stifle the Sharks? What were your thoughts on that series, and what do they got to do to be successful against Boston?
Yeah. So I thought some of their key players really stepped up. Like I think we really talked about Vladimir Tarasenko before and early in the series that he really needed to step up. And man, did he do it in a huge way. He finished the series with 3 goals and 8 points in the 6 games, including that beautiful snipe on the penalty shot and even one last night on the power play where he picked that corner short side. Between him and Jaden Schwartz once again with another hat trick these playoffs, becoming the first player to score multiple hat tricks in a single playoff since Johan Franzen back in 2008. Those were the big 2, and then they were just able to shut down all the Sharks' big guns. And Jordan Binnington, as the series went along, he just got better and better until they just couldn't get bury any of their opportunities. And I think you brought up before in our preview of this series that the Sharks the Blues just started pounding the Shark players over and over again. And you had Erik Karlsson, Joe Pavelski, and Thomas Hertl all out of the lineup for Game 6, and all 3 of those guys, I think they combined for like close to 50 points these playoffs and 16 goals, all key contributors. So it's just that ground and pound game and good defensive hockey that got them this win.
Erik Karlsson definitely wasn't himself. I thought it was a mistake to dress him in Game 5. He left early, and I thought it hurt the team to have him in the lineup. I mean, he kind of made the mistake for the first goal. He gave the puck away up the boards and then screened his own goalie on the shot from, I believe it was Sundqvist that scored that goal. I did comment at the beginning of the series that St. Louis just absolutely was pounding them, even though San Jose won Game 1. St. Louis pounded them, and I can see them doing that against Boston too. But Boston's no pushover, so Boston St. Louis is going to be a great battle. I mean, two physical teams, two fast teams, two experienced teams. We're going to see, you know, the Ryan O'Reilly versus Patrice Bergeron lineup. We're going to see, you know, Chara against Tarasenko probably all night. But, you know, Braden Schen's on that line, and Braden Schen's not afraid to get his nose dirty. Sammy Blyce is going to be hitting away, and it's just going to be a crazy series. You know, just looking back on our predictions, we both had Boston moving on. I picked them in 5. You picked them in 6. And then I actually had St. Louis in 6, and you had San Jose in 7.
I thought the series would go either way. But yeah, it's just like I wanted the Sharks to win because of Joe Thornton, but it wasn't to be. But yeah, it's my pick will still be Boston in the finals. And one other matchup I'll be interested to see is the Battle of the Rats with Brad Marchand and David Perron.
That's going to be a great battle.
Yeah, it's like Perron, man. It's like if you watch that guy play, he really does get under your skin. And talk about back-to-back years for him making the Stanley Cup Finals last year with Vegas and this year with the Blues. That'll be another interesting matchup I'd like to see.
Him and Thomas Tatar, of course, were in and out of the second line there for Vegas last year. But, yeah, you know, if O'Reilly and Bergeron play against each other, that means Perron and Marchand will be lining up against each other. That's going to be interesting. I'm going to like that, I think, a lot. That'll be fun to watch. But if you're going with Boston, I got to go with St. Louis to win the Stanley Cup. I'm going to pick them in 6. I don't know how they're going to get a lot past Tuukka Rask. They're not allowing a whole lot either, and they've done it again for a couple of games against the Sharks. They did it against Dallas. They did it against Winnipeg, where they limit, you know, like the Sharks at one game had 11 shots, I think, or 12 shots in the first, but then only had, you know, a handful of shots after the first period. And St. Louis seems to be able to make little adjustments in game to stifle the other team. You know, Winnipeg that one period only had, I think, 2 shots on net. And St. Louis seems to be doing that. I can see them doing that again. And all they need is 1 or 2 past Tuukka Rask. But, man, I hope it's not a low-scoring series as much as both teams have played so well defensively. I hope it's exciting, and I hope for the fans that it's a great hockey series. You're picking Boston. Why and how many?
Yeah, so I'll pick Boston. I'll also go in 6 games. I think just like the experience level from Chara on the back end, and then Patrice Bergeron, Brad Marchand. You want to go David Krejci as well. Those 3 guys, all part of the 2011 and 2013 teams I went to that either won the Cup or went to the Stanley Cup Final. I think that they're just too good. And then Tuukka Rask and net, like Binnington, he's been playing well, but Rask is just on a whole nother level because Binnington's save percentage these playoffs is a 914 through 19 games, and Rask in 17 games a 942 save percentage. And I know Binnington as the series goes along, he raises his game as it goes along, but Rask, he's just so consistent this year that I have a hard time seeing the Blues beat them in a 7-game series. And of course, if I go for line matchups, Marchand, Bergeron, and Pastrnak, like those guys are just so good. And depth scoring, I think both sides have good depth scoring, but like guys like Coyle and Johansson have really had impressive playoffs for Boston. And of course, I still can't believe I'm praising Boston so much right now.
Hey, well, we talked about the Bergeron and O'Reilly matchup. I mean, that's 2 Selke nominees going head to head. Both can put the puck in the net. Both are solid in their own zone. Both Team Canada players. I'm really interested in that. But also the 4th line, Corrali's line against Sundqvist and Steen and Barbashev. I'm going to be really interested to see those lines go head to head.
Yeah, and also special teams I'll also be interested to see because we saw this in the Carolina-Boston series where the special teams were pretty lopsided. Boston with the top power play in the playoffs at 34%, and Boston's PKs at 86.3%. That's 4th in the playoffs. St. Louis, Their power play is at 19.4%, which is ninth, but that's still a pretty good clip if you're going around 20%. But their penalty kill is 78%, which is 11th these playoffs. And we saw with the way Carolina's penalty kill how Boston dismantled them. Though I think the St. Louis matches up a lot better, just with the players that they have to stop Boston's power play. But man, if you're talking about special teams, that came up huge last series for Boston and throughout the playoffs. Now, if you take a penalty, they are going to score one way or the other. So that'll be another thing to keep an eye on.
Well, and St. Louis, in their defense, I mean, I believe they did really good as far as penalty kill goes against Dallas, but against San Jose and Winnipeg, probably two of the better power plays in the league. They had to have that, so it will be interesting to see how they match up. I do like St. Louis's penalty kill, as long as their defense don't both end up in the same corner and start running around like they have in the past. But it'd be really interesting. I like St. Louis defensively in this series. I think if Char is banged up a little bit, that might hurt Boston because, I mean, you better believe they're going to be running Krug through the boards all series long. As well as McAvoy. So I'll be real curious to see how they can stay healthy with the St. Louis forwards come charging in. And as well as this, the St. Louis defense. I mean, we've got Vince Dunn hurt right now, but with him out of the lineup, Gunnarsson's done well filling in. And I believe, they're bigger players like Pietrangelo and Parayko and Edmondson they're beasts back there. I mean, those guys are physical specimens that are going to hit everybody in sight. And, of course, there's a lot of Team Canada connections. There's a David Backes connection in this series. I mean, he was a captain for St. Louis for 7 or 8 years, I believe, before he left. And now he's back playing his old team. So there's some great storylines. Why don't you – what else do you want to add to that before we move on?
I think actually that's about it. But yeah, it's going to be one heck of a series. That first game in Boston goes on Monday at 5 p.m. All the start times are at 5 o'clock. It's the series, the 7 games, we got Monday and Wednesday in Boston. And then in St. Louis, we got it on Saturday and Monday for games 3 and 4. And then if game 5 will be on the following Thursday.
I can't stand the NHL scheduling. Like, I don't understand why they don't schedule this for sooner. Get the series done with. Maybe there's a venue problem. I don't know, but man, they could have done a lot better with the scheduling. At least it gives the teams though a chance to rest up and rest in between games if they're blocking a lot of shots and banging and crashing. So. Boston, I'm sure, is going to be sick of scrimmaging against themselves going into this. So expect a lot of power plays in Game 1 for St. Louis.
I know, yeah. I'll probably take a period for both teams to get things going again, especially Boston. If you're sitting around for that long trying to stay in game fitness. So, yeah, that first period will probably be just like everybody trying to get to know each other against each other, and then the second period things will start going full out.
World Championships, we finally have the round robin over with. Some drama with some of the lesser teams being able to stave off relegation. But the big 8, I believe, are in the quarterfinals here. I guess Slovakia never made it, which is maybe a bit of a surprise. But the way Germany's been playing, they definitely deserve to be in the top 8. So what are our matchups, and why don't you talk about the relegation games that we got to see?
Yeah. So the quarterfinals go tomorrow. The early games at 7:15 is Canada versus Switzerland and Russia versus USA. And then the later games at 11:15 a.m. It will be Finland versus Sweden and Czech Republic versus Germany. So we got Canada versus Switzerland. Switzerland, I believe, eliminated Canada last year in the semifinals, and they always give Canada a really rough time every year. Just for some reason, Canada just has a really hard time.
And Switzerland lost their last 3 games of the round robin to Russia, Sweden, and the Czechs. They went 4-0 to start against the weaker teams. but every single game against the big teams were close.
Mm-hmm.
Like they only lost by one, or I think to Russia they lost 3-0, but they lost 5-4 to the Czechs, and the game against Sweden, I believe, was really close as well. So defensively, that always worries me when Canada plays Switzerland. It's definitely not a walkover, gimme kind of game.
Yeah, because you got Roman Josi patrolling the back end, and that guy's an absolute monster. And then they just added Niederreiter late this week. And even that loss to the Czech Republic, they actually pulled their goalie when the game was tied at 4-4 because they had to win in regulation to try to pass Sweden for third place. But that's even why they lost that game. So they could have even won that one possibly. So, but yeah, they're with Hischier and Fiala up front as well. And then their goaltending between, I'm not sure if they'll go with Rito Berra or Giannoni in net, but both goalies have been playing really well this tournament. So it's going to be a tough matchup. And then you go Russia, USA. Russia is the only undefeated team. They went 7-0. Nikita Kucherov, Nikita Gusev, Evgeny Danilov, Malkin.
They're sick. They got a disgusting team.
Yeah. So I think they should beat USA pretty handedly. Oh, and also on a note for Canada is that Anthony Mantha got suspended one game. He hit Colin White in the head in their final round robin game. So that's a huge loss because he tied for the lead in goals with 7 in the tournament and was tied for 4th, I believe, in scoring with 12 points in 7 games. So that's a huge loss for Canada. And then going to Finland versus Sweden. This will be an interesting matchup because
two countries that have a high hate on for each other when it comes to a hockey game.
Yeah, because Finland they don't have any other star players there. They got Kaapo Kakko, who's been ripping it up, and then Sweden. I know they've been sort of up and down with some of their play against some of the higher ranked teams. But I think Sweden should beat Finland, even though Finland plays a really good defensive game. But I think just the star power on Sweden will beat them. William Nylander led the tournament in points with 17 in 7 games, which is unreal. And for you Canuck fans, Elias Pettersson had 2 goals and 9 points in those 7 games, including that incredible death stare to the Latvian bench after he scored. But yeah, I got Sweden winning that one. And between the Czechs and the Germans, I really liked how Germany's played this tournament. Leon Draisaitl has been a beast for them, but I really like their goaltending between Niederberger and Grubauer in net. But I think the Czechs should win, though I will give the goaltending edge to Germany between Niederberger and Grubauer. But guys like Voracek and Frolik both had great tournaments. And Dominic Simon from the Pittsburgh Penguins also had a good tournament. And one guy to keep an eye out for you Chicago Blackhawk fans, Thomas Kubalik, who had 4 goals and 10 points in 7 games. He's an RFA or an unsigned RFA for you guys. It is rumored that he will sign with Chicago this offseason, but that's the one guy to keep out for.
All right. Some of the relegation games, we saw Great Britain in a big comeback beat France in overtime. So the French will be relegated, I believe. I'm not entirely sure how that works, but it sounds like both teams in the bottom teams in Group A and B both get relegated for the 2 top teams in the division below, which looks like it's Kazakhstan, and I'm not sure if it's South Korea as the other one. But and then, of course, Italy came back and beat Austria in a really big game.
Yeah. So Great Britain, they were down 3-0 to the French, and then they just kept coming back, and then they got the big, huge overtime goal from Davies, who actually in the first period had a breakaway and decided to do a drop pass to nobody, which I was just like, what are you doing? Sort of thing. So a huge moment for Great Britain because they haven't stayed in the tournament in back-to-back years, I think since the 1950s is what I saw. And then Italy. I thought they've gotten great goaltending throughout the entire tournament between Bernard and I think it's DeFilippo Roya or something like that was the guy's last name. Both of those guys played outstanding And then of course it was all those Canadian-born players that got it done for Italy. I think we had one guy from Delta BC that scored, and then the guy that got the shootout winner, McMonagle. What a last name, McMonagle, scored the shootout winner in the 7th round of the shootout to relegate Austria. So really love seeing like those smaller countries where hockey isn't at the top of the mountain there in those countries, that they're able to stay in next year's tournament.
Memorial Cup, Prince Albert, 0-3 in the round robin. They're going to be out. They're eliminated. Just too much, I think, after such a tough series with the Vancouver Giants, and too quickly after. The other teams, you can tell, have been a lot more rested than them and ready. Who do you think is going to pull through to win the Memorial Cup right now?
Yeah, so I really like the Guelph Storm.
That's my choice, by the way.
Yeah, between the Guelph Storm and the Halifax and Mooseheads, I think I go with either team. Though like all three teams other than Prince Albert have played really well this tournament. Like Guelph, they have Nick Suzuki, who for you Habs fans, man, that guy's gonna be a treat to watch. Maybe even next season for them. Between them and Sean Dursey on the back end, for you Los Angeles Kings fans, he's had an incredible tournament. And then you go to the Mooseheads, where I'm trying to remember who all played for them. The Trey Penier, I forget his first name, but he's had a really good tournament. And then for let's see here, for Rune Durando. Oh no, never mind. I got them mixed up. So for Guelph, they also have a Toropchenko, who's this Russian draft pick for the Blues. He had a hat trick, or a natural hat trick in the first period against Rune Durando. Man, that name has kept me every time. But yeah, I think it'll really come down to Halifax and Guelph in the finals. Though we'll see, because Guelph is 2-1, Halifax and Rune Durando, their game probably just ended. But if the Huskies won, all three of those teams would be 2-1, and then we'd have to look at tiebreakers.
And the Huskies did beat Halifax in the QMJHL championship this year, so.
Okay, yeah, that would be
interesting. Match teams though, so it could go either way.
Yeah, because I saw the Halifax was down 2-0 in the first, and they scored 3 straight goals in the second to take a 3-2 lead. So we'll see how that game ends. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what all the tiebreakers are if they do come back. So it'll be interesting to keep an eye on that.
And maybe they'll have to play each other again in the semis. A couple minor, well, not minor, but a couple teams are getting closer to naming NHL coaches. Why don't you update us on that, and then we're going to end today's show.
Yeah, so the Edmonton Oilers, it looks like Dave Tippett is the leading candidate for the Edmonton Oilers job. He's right now with the Seattle NHL group as part of their management team there. So it looks like he's looking to get back into coaching. I think he hasn't coached since the Coyotes, I believe. It's been a while, but I think you've seen all those big, huge head coaching salaries going around in the NHL, and like I could use some of those millions of dollars coming my way. So if he comes down there, he'll definitely be a great defensive-minded coach. It'll be interesting to see how his style of coaching goes along with Connor McDavid and all that, because those teams in Phoenix, they didn't exactly have any superstars on them. And then also with Ottawa Senators, this past weekend, Patrick Waugh was apparently interviewed by the Senators. And there looks like, according to Bob McKenzie, the Senators will look to announce a new head coach this weekend at the soonest. So if he does go there, that will be a really interesting.
Surprisingly, Ottawa's a mess, but Patrick Waugh, for some reason, seems like a match there. I don't know why. I mean, he's good with younger players. He's got the temper. He's got the dramatics, so he might fit right in.
I know, yeah, and it works perfectly in the nation capital. He speaks English and French too, so good on the media side as well. So, but yeah, I really want Patrick Waugh to take that job, because, man, for Senator fans, there isn't a whole lot going your way. So at least that would make things a little bit interesting, even though it has nothing to do with the on-ice team. But yeah, keep an eye on those, because yeah, no sooner than the weekend we'll probably get coaching announcements from the Senators and the Oilers.
Yeah. Oh, well, that wraps up today's show. Again, like we opened up, remember to like and share and comment below. Whether you're following us on Facebook or on YouTube, that's B&B Hockey Talk. We love our fans. We love bringing the show to you guys each and every, every couple of days anyway. So we'll be back Friday with our next episode and more of a preview to the Stanley Cup Final. As we get ready for that, we'll be able to go over the winners of the quarterfinals of the World Championships. And, of course, we'll know more as we get closer to the Memorial Cup Final this weekend. So have a great rest of the week, everyone, and we will see you Friday.